In 1975, Ford rolled out some bold models that didn't stand the test of time. Why did they disappear? Changing regulations, rising fuel costs, and shifting consumer tastes all played a role. These cars lost their place on the road and in showrooms. Today, most are forgotten relics, rarely remembered, but still a fascinating part of Ford's history. Dear viewers, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you for your support. Number 5. Ford Torino, 1968 to 1976. Originally a higher trim version of the Ford Fairlane, the Torino evolved into a full-fledged nameplate, available as a coupe, sedan, and even station wagon, but most famously known for its muscle car variants like the Torino GT and Torino Cobra. The 1970 to 71 Torino models were particularly aggressive in styling and power, offering big block V8s, including the legendary 429 Cobra jet engine. Why it disappeared? By the mid-1970s, the oil crisis and rising fuel prices made big V8 sedans less appealing. Insurance premiums for performance cars skyrocketed, especially for younger drivers, hurting the muscle market. Consumer preferences shifted toward smaller, more efficient vehicles, and eventually toward trucks and SUVs. Sales declined, and by 1976, the Torino nameplate was quietly retired, replaced in function by the LTD2. Do people remember it? Yes, but with a twist. The Torino is often remembered more for its pop culture presence than for its sales legacy. Most notably, the 1975 Ford Gran Torino gained fame as the red and white striped police car in the hit TV series Starsky and Hutch Hutch. Enthusiasts and collectors also revere the early 70s Cobra jet Torinos as underrated gems of the muscle car era. While not as iconic as the Mustang or Charger, the Torino holds a solid place in muscle car history. Number 4. Ford Country Squire, 1950 to 1991. A long-running, full-size station wagon that defined suburban family life in North America for over 4 decades. Known for its signature faux wood paneling along the sides, a design cue that made it instantly recognizable. Often based on the full-size Ford platforms like the LTD, it came loaded with features and space. It was the flagship wagon in Ford's lineup, offering seating for up to 9 passengers with rear-facing third-row seats. Why it disappeared? By the late 1980s and early 1990s, minivans, like the Dodge Caravan, and SUVs, like the Ford Explorer, began to dominate the family vehicle market. The Country Squire's size, poor fuel economy, and dated image made it feel like a relic of a bygone era. Changing tastes and the rise of smaller, more efficient vehicles made the big wood-paneled wagon feel clunky and impractical. Production officially ended in 1991, marking the end of the full-size Ford station wagon era. Do people remember it? Yes, with nostalgia. For many, it's the car they rode in as kids on long family road trips, often squished in the way-back seat. It's sometimes remembered humorously for being massive, slow, and awkward to park, but also warmly as a symbol of family life in the 60s to 80s. The wood paneling has become iconic, even if it was never actual wood, and today, it's often referenced in pop culture as peak retro style. Collectors and classic car fans occasionally restore them for fun, but the Country Squire hasn't had the muscle car style revival that some other classics have. Number 3. Ford LTD, 1965 to 1986, full-size sedan, introduced as a luxury trim of the Galaxy 500 in 1965, the LTD eventually became Ford's flagship full-size sedan. Offered big car comfort, smooth V8 power, and traditional American styling. The name LTD was never officially defined by Ford, but many joked it meant luxury trim decor or living the dream. The LTD came in multiple sizes over the years, but the 1970s versions were the largest and most well-known. Why it disappeared. By the early 1980s, consumer demand shifted to smaller, more fuel-efficient cars, especially after the 1973 and 1979 oil crises. Ford downsized the LTD in 1979, making it lighter and more efficient. But it still couldn't compete with more modern imports and rising mid-size models. In 1983, the Ford LTD name was split. The LTD Crown Victoria continued as the full-size rear-wheel drive sedan, while the LTD name itself was reassigned to a mid-size car, based on the 1983 model year Fairmont. The LTD name quietly faded out by 1986, as the Crown Victoria became the default full-size Ford sedan. Do people remember it? Yes, especially among older generations. It was a go-to family car, a police cruiser, and even a fleet car for government and taxi use. For many, it was their first car, or the one they learned to drive in. Recognizable traits: huge chrome bumpers, opera windows, bench seats, and V8 rumbles. Not flashy, but it earned respect for being dependable, roomy, and American as apple pie. Number 2. Ford Gran Torino Brougham, 1972 to 1976. The Brougham trim was the most luxurious version of the Gran Torino, which itself evolved from the original Torino line, meant to compete with mid- to full-size personal luxury cars like the Chevy Monte Carlo and Pontiac Grand Prix. Came with plush interiors, vinyl roofs, opera windows, and plenty of chrome. Often powered by large V8 engines, 351, 400, or even 460 cubic inches. It was more about comfort and presence than performance. Why it disappeared. By the mid to late 1970s, fuel economy standards tightened and emissions regulations increased, making huge V8s impractical. The Gran Torino Brougham was seen as too large, too thirsty, and too dated as consumer tastes shifted toward compact, efficient cars, especially imports. Ford began downsizing its lineup in the late 70s, and the Gran Torino was phased out by 1978-1976. The name Torino was dropped, and the LTD2, based on the same platform, briefly took its place before itself, disappearing by 1979. Do people remember it? Mostly classic car fans and muscle-era enthusiasts, pop culture gave it a moment of fame. The Ford Gran Torino, non-Brougham, starred in Starsky and Hutch, and Clint Eastwood's film Gran Torino, 2008, renewed interest in the model. But the Brougham version, with its emphasis on luxury over performance, is mostly remembered as a relic of the disco and gas guzzler era.